Let's jump back into Outfield Rankings Part 2 up next on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Wednesday, November 5th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White, and let's jump back into Scott's way too early rankings, outfield rankings, for next season. And yesterday we left off with Brent Rooker at number 15 in your outfield rankings. The next three you have Randy Arozarena, Riley Greene, and Seiya Suzuki, 16, 17, and 18. The one that stands out here, Scott, is a name that we haven't seen ranked this highly before. It's Riley Greene. How much do you trust the breakout we just saw this past season?
Well, it better be legit, because if the increase from 24 home runs to 36 isn't legit, then I'm not sure what else there is here to get excited about. Riley Greene's profile, like, he's turned into a good fantasy player for sure, but it's a much more one-dimensional player than we thought he was going to be as a prospect. Not a base stealer at all. Average at best for batting average, and if that home run production does drop off in any significant way, then you got to feel like he's losing a good number of batting average points too, because he struck out 31% of the time this year, frightening rate. And yet he had a good season. So, like, I don't want to completely knock him and say, Riley Greene is not worth having as your second outfielder. No, he is. But I think you want to approach him with some hesitation, and maybe give him less benefit of the doubt than others like Randy Arozarena or Cody Bellinger, because it's so tied to his home run total, and he doesn't have a long history of hitting that many.
19, 20, and 21. You have Jarren Duran, Roman Anthony, and Jose Altuve. So the two Red Sox here very clearly stand out. Jarren Duran had a down year last season, was being drafted as a second, third round pick. I think that's going to drop down a few rounds heading into 2026. And Roman Anthony, top prospect. He impressed. He hit the ball extremely hard. Also, lots of ground balls. So while I think the approach is there and I trust the quality of contact, will it translate to power and speed right away? That's the question for Roman Anthony.
Yeah, I totally get the enthusiasm for Roman Anthony. I think he had a strong rookie performance, more so from a real life perspective, because the on-base percentage was so high. From a fantasy perspective, there are still some things that need to be worked out here, launch angle especially, but also contact rate. There are strides Roman Anthony needs to make to fulfill his potential. Early ADP data just came out, and I think it's giving him a little too much benefit of the doubt. Early drafters on NFBC 12th is where they're taking Anthony, and here I'm ranking him 20th in the outfield. So they're kind of presuming the leap, while I am guarding against the possibility his home run total lags again by ranking Anthony 20th, but also still counting for the upside. I'm trying to take more of a middle stance on that, because I think one day Anthony will be great. I'm just not sure. I think it's probable, but I'm just not sure it's going to be in 2026. As for Duran, 2024 is probably going to go down as his career season. 2025 seems like an overcorrection, though. The stolen base total kind of inexplicably dropped. The batting average dropped more than it should have. I think we see a modest bounce back from Duran in 2026, but not enough to make him a second-round caliber player again.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in FBT Express. We are taking a look at Scott's early outfield rankings for next season. And 22, 23, and 24, you have Michael Harris, Jackson Merrill, and O'Neal Cruz. What a group. Michael Harris, extremely streaky. He usually does get there by the end of the season. Merrill and Cruz, they had down years in 2025. Jackson Merrill dealt with injuries. Cruz hit .200 over a full season. So obviously that dragged down his fantasy production quite a bit. Scott, from this group, I think Jackson Merrill could wind up being perhaps the most interesting and maybe one of the most polarizing players for next season as well.
Yeah, early indications are I'm going to be the low guy on Jackson Merrill by only ranking him 23rd in the outfield. That early NFBC ADP has him 14th, which is similar to where he was drafted last year, coming off a much, much, much better season. So the stolen base production in 2025 completely went away. He stole one base. And it took a massive September to get his home run total even halfway respectable with 16. The batting average fell like 30 points. The strikeout rate was up. Basically, he got worse across the board as a sophomore and significantly worse in some areas, stolen bases, namely. And I think, yes, he had some injuries, but I'm not willing to say... I have no reason to presume that's all it was for Jackson Merrill. Sort of like I was saying with Riley Greene and the home runs. There's just not enough of a track record here for me to think, oh, yeah, 2025 doesn't count. 2024, that's the year we should draft him based on. So I'm just being a little more guarded in my approach to Merrill for 2026.
25, 26, and 27, you have Kyle Stowers, Tyler Soderstrom, and Brandon Nimmo. Stowers, he looks like a legit power bat. We got this breakout campaign from Stowers, but it was cut short due to injury. So I guess the hope for next season is that he kind of builds on that and maybe turns himself into a 30 home run bat in 2026.
Yeah, I don't have too much negative to say about Kyle Stowers. He's older than you think he is. He was a minor league standout who didn't have a lot of prospect hype, and you just kind of presumed he'd be this quadruple A player, but he delivered on that production. He delivered that same sort of production in the majors here in his age 27 season, got a chance to shine and did. The underlying numbers back it up. The exit velocity readings were great. The strikeout rate was a little high, but not so much that I think it's a major red flag for Kyle Stowers. I think he's really solid. I think he could be as good as Brent Rooker, but early ADP, he's available 70 picks later. So I'm probably going to have quite a bit of Kyle Stowers in 2026.
And the last group we'll talk about here, 28, 29, and 30, you have Andy Pages, Jo Adell, and Lawrence Butler. Adell feels pretty similar to Kyle Stowers, just from the right-hand side. There's a lot of power here. The underlying metrics like Jo Adell quite a bit as well. Lawrence Butler's got down season, lots of hype entering last year. He still managed to go 2020. Turns out he was playing through a knee injury. He's already had surgery on that. So I can see some people talking themselves into maybe a little bit of a bounce back for Lawrence Butler next year.
Yeah, we're seeing a common thread here. Me ranking certain players lower than consensus. Jackson Merrill, Lawrence Butler. And that common thread is, he was injured for much of this season, so it just doesn't count. And again, kind of stressing the same point here, I think that's a fair assumption when a guy has an established track record, multi-year track record of being a certain player. Injury plague year falls way off. Yes, you can assume that was all in the injury. But when it's a track record of one good year, I don't know that we can just say it was all the injury. There was plenty of skepticism for Lawrence Butler coming into 2025. It was, kind of low in quantity. There weren't a lot of people. There weren't a lot of detractors for Lawrence Butler, but the detractors that existed made good points. And he fell way short of expectations. Maybe it was the knee injury, but maybe it was just the fact that 2025 was a fluke in terms of how much contact he made and the angle the ball took off the bat, really maximizing his outcomes in a way that we shouldn't expect to see again. So I don't know. I'm more, particularly since by the end of the year, the Athletics were sitting Lawrence Butler against left-handed pitchers very consistently. He was a pure platoon bat, and now he's got to overcome that stigma. I'm inclined to play it more conservatively with him, just like I am with Jackson Merrill.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.